attack, fast fatal heart impact, past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and packs. I back up my actions, fact don't ask, grab reactions, jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're just freaked out. Get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Kirusho here. And well, whenever we last left off with this series, Izuku Midoriya, he has been a little bit hungry. Not only has he been eating demonic souls and absorbing their power, but you also do have Ochako. She has been in a coma for roughly about 3 months. And Bakugo is basically there to take care of her in case she does wake up and still have that demonic power. They want to see if they can get any information out of her. Now, with that being said, let us cut to today. It has been roughly about a week since we last left off. Things do not seem to be good with Izuku and Mei. Mei still does seem to be a bit more cautious about what Midoriya is doing. Along with that, he has had a bit of a personality shift. He doesn't see demons as people anymore. He sees them more like hunting for sports. And he doesn't see it as a job anymore. He just sees it more as fun. She already thinks that he's beginning to change. And it doesn't really sit very well with her. Meanwhile, you do have Ibarra, who Midoriya has actually been getting a bit closer with. These two have been talking more and fighting more. In fact, most of the time whenever Midoriya does go out and fight, she is alongside him. And the two constantly just, well, go out together. Is that really the best way to phrase it? Now, today Midoriya gets up and does eat some food. Before actually just thinking, him and Ibarra did plan on going out and actually fighting a bit more. But Mei has been, well, she seems annoyed. So should he go talk with her? Trying to think about it. It all doesn't really seem like a bad idea. So he should do that, right? Now, as Midoriya is going to leave, he walks out of the building and begins to head towards the front gates. However, this is before he does even walk out of the front gates, there is a, well, question on the radio. Someone basically running up to him and saying that they need him over at, well, the technology room, or the tech lab. And Midoriya does actually seem somewhat annoyed, as he begins to make his way over there. Mei probably wants to talk with him. So let's just get this out of the way, and then he can give her space. As Midoriya is walking in, he eventually does step into the room, and see who he didn't really think he would see. You have Ochako Yuraka, who is currently on her feet, and is very confused as to what is going on. Now, with that being said, she does see Midoriya, and is quite surprised for a second. Unsure what to even do, she wants to take a step backwards and get away from him, but at the same time, she knows that she's basically surrounded. Midoriya quickly flips his eyes. As soon as he does, he sees that there is nothing but a pure white soul. As he does walk forwards and asks a simple question of who is she. Where Who did I stutter? Who are you in there? What are you talking about? Who am I? Yes, what's the last thing that you remember? The the USJ. That's not possible. That was years ago. What? Sadly, it's true, Uraka. Her turning her head to see Bakugo. She was still unaware as to who this man was. What does that mean? Well, you probably don't remember it very well. You died. Huh? We buried you. You and about 10 other people. What? But how am I... It's a long story. Turns out Angel Boy here is just that. Her turning to Midoriya, and seeing his face. Angel Boy. The Punisher? Yup, in the flesh. And well, it is quite a surprise to see you. What are you talking about? Well, last time we met, well, you basically crippled one of my friends, and are the exact reason for what happened. Also, you tried to kill me about at least 7 or 8 times. I'm sorry? Don't be. I believe I know what happened. They tried to possess you whenever you were a corpse, so it didn't work. Your soul couldn't leave your body, so what's the next best thing? Give a demon the traits of a human. Not only can they walk on the earth, but they can abuse their potential. And you were just that. You were a pawn in a game. We all were. And the demon who was in charge of you, I should say, had a bit of a joyride. For the last 5 years, they've been killing people while wearing your face. Huh? Yeah, it's true, Uraka. Facts. Kirishima, well, we're not too sure what happened with him. He bonded with the demon and betrayed everyone. Then you have Tokuyami and Mina. What? Yeah. Sad to say, not a lot of us are left. And those of us that are, well, it's not pretty. Now, with that being said, Midoriya, he does begin to try and interview Ochako. Try and get information out of her. However, before they can even really get started, you do have a loud sound. That loud sound being directly outside of the room, as they do go running out, and see the current predicament. You have, well, let's see, the Ghost Rider, which is tossed through the giant wall, and landed in the city. And he got back up, going on to state that they are really pushing back this time. And, surprise, surprise, that is whenever the Doomslayer comes flying through, smashing onto the ground before at least trying to get back onto his feet. As soon as he does, he just looks a bit more pissed off. Along with that, the glass on his helmet is actually cracked. And he just simply just says, "It seems like they were at least tactical today." What do you mean tactical? Midoriya says as he walks up. Well, first off, they had a solution to breaking the line. And they're on their way. A massive force of them. You're joking, right? Nope. So what do you say, Punisher? You want to get your hands dirty? Tch, fine. But just be aware. I'm not going to go easy on them. No one was asking you to. In fact, this actually might be a bit more fun. I myself have some payback to go up against them. Now, that's whenever the Doomslayer just starts rushing in. And he just leaps directly at the door, smashing straight through it as he instructs everyone to simply just fight. Now, this is whenever everyone takes their own battle stations. A lot of the people, or at least humans, do go to put on these specialized suits. Well, you do have Izuku, who just manifests his wings and goes flying through the wall, the generous hole that was made. Meanwhile, you do have Meihatsume, who is going to suit up in a massive juggernaut and pilot it from the inside. Now, with that being said, let us cut over to Mr. Something. As everyone is fighting the battle, he was just given orders. What has currently happened? Right now, somebody has simply done it. Their soldiers have broken through. And Mr. Something is going ahead to lead the charge. Take down the humanity, take down the human walls, and get on with it. Exterminate them. Then, after they are done, they can begin to move on to the next world and try to take it over. If they cannot take this world over, they will leave it in ruins. If humanity does have technology to fight back, they will make sure that they cannot fight. Now, along with that, this is whenever he also does instruct him, Mina, and Tokuyami. They are all going to go in and kill them all. Leave no one left alive. Now, that is whenever they do leave and go off, heading back to Earth. Now, let us cut to roughly an hour later. The battle is already getting underway. Demons are beginning to make their way throughout the streets and trying to kill and take down any humans. Along with that, you also do have humans themselves. They are loading up special ammunition and firing shots off at the demons. Whenever that doesn't work, they simply try to use their quirks or try to use blades made of this specialized metal. It is somewhat of an even fight. However, the demons are stronger, and some of them carry weapons, easily able to just slice through somebody with one swift motion. Now, along with that, you do have Midoriya, the Ghost Rider, and the Doomslayer. The Doomslayer is getting dogpiled, and having to actually just throw up his hands and fight more. Smash through whatever he can and take them all down. While the Ghost Rider, he's running around on his motorcycle. Right now his motorcycle is currently moving on its own. He is sitting on the seat and with, well, chains, he's throwing them in every single direction, and letting off the panic stare at every direction he looks at. Demons, their skulls swiftly igniting, and burning to a crisp, while others simply get scorched by hellfire, and ripped apart by the chains. Along with that, you do have the human resistance. Bakugo is going at 100%. Using One For All, Float, and Black Whip all with each other is what I'm trying to say. I was going to say in conjunction. But now, as they're all fighting and going at it, you also do have Ibara and Momo. Both these two are at least staying together. Ibara using her vines to simply just throw them in different directions and try and cut and, tear through the demons. While you also do have Momo, who is making her angel-tipped bullets, if you can call them that, or at least holy rounds. Now, as she is doing that, Melissa and David Shields, they themselves are talking, and they are trying to at least try and think. There needs to be a way that they can help. There needs to be a way that they can at least make sure things are good. Now, Ochako does try and get involved, asking about exactly what is this, and what's going on. And they do have to try and explain it to her. Now, with that being said, eventually, Mr. Something does enter the battle, along with Mina and Tokoyami. That being where Tokoyami begins to try and take down a majority of the human forces. This being where Dark Shadow basically just immediately jumps out of his back and grows in size, beginning to be the size of one of these giant juggernauts, and one of the huge demons that actually did throw the Doomslayer through the wall. That being where the Ghost Rider actually does go into action, seeing the ginormous thing coming at them. As soon as Dark Shadow does begin to try and rip through and destroy everyone, this is where the Ghost Rider does actually ride in, and immediately begin to burn up with flames, as he turns blue. After he does that, he immediately just throws out his chains, and they at least spark and begin to blister with power, them wrapping around Dark Shadow, and the Ghost Rider simply just pulling him up into the air, as he smashes him down in the battlefields. The bike beginning to just pull Dark Shadow around and make him swing through enemy forces. And meanwhile, the Doomslayer, he jumped directly at Tokoyami, being able to smash him in the air and smash him directly back into the ground, beginning to try and beat into and hit him, before acid does get splashed onto his back. And Mina is actually there. The Doomslayer immediately just grabbing onto his armor and ripping it off. As soon as he does that, he immediately turns around and goes to smash Mina in the face, her being able to move out of the way before she does actually try and hit his helmet, to which he quickly just throws her hand upwards, and is actually able to get hit in the top of his back. Now, his durability is extremely high. Not only has he been fighting in this war, but this Doomslayer has gone through a lot of other things. In fact, he spent a very long time in hell. More than the Doomslayer you all may know from my other series. He has had difficulties with demons before. In fact, he was taken by them and tortured until he went mad, and being scorched by the embers of torments, they became his daily life. A little acid won't do much. It can eat through and melt his armor, but right now it simply might as well be like pulling blisters out of your skin. Midoriya quickly just throwing his arm around. As soon as he throws the amount of force he needs to in that direction, she gets sent flying due to just pure wind pressure. And Midoriya might as well just shot a cannonball straight through part of the battlefields. An unstoppable force. Meanwhile, you do have Punisher, who he is currently going after Mr. Something. The two were able to meet into the air after Midoriya saw him, and they began to fight. Midoriya and him meeting in the air and actually clashing. The two going back and forth. Mr. Something actually being surprised at Midoriya's power. Midoriya seems to have gotten a lot stronger, calling Midoriya out on the fact that he seems to be nothing more than still a simple mortal, and that no amount of power can disrupt that. Now, the two are throwing each other around the battlefield, and they are simply just going back and forth, smashing through many opponents and allies. Midoriya trying to keep a majority of his people alive, while Mr. Something is simply just fighting with reckless abandonment. Eventually he does spawn his sword, and so does Midoriya. As soon as he does actually don his sword, he actually does also don armor. Except it does look a bit different. The armor does actually look a bit more, well, surprisingly red. Instead of the angelic-like glow you get from it, you get a sense of dread from it as well, along with the sword itself. And Mr. Something does realize exactly what Midori has been doing, the reason why he seems to be a bit more strong. He's become something more. He committed a taboo. He has turned himself into somewhat of a Nephilim, a human and an angel. But he is neither one. He is an abomination. And they quickly begin to collide, the two swinging their massive weapons at each other. Midoriya slicing through enemy forces as these two go back and forth over and over and over again. Meanwhile, you do have Mei Hatsume in the ginormous juggernauts. She is firing off and hitting many demons out of the sky. Along with that, her and the armored forces are actually holding ground against the demons. They are able to take care of the ones trying to enter the city and protect it. Now, the Juggernauts, as I will call it, is actually making its way onto the battlefields, and its weapon systems are truly being put to the test. Missiles are flying in every single direction, along with actually smashing down onto enemy troops. And well, the armored forces that are protecting the Juggernaut are also doing very well too. They are just blasting power in every single direction, and making sure to keep it on its feet. If someone hits something important on its legs or even tries to wrap them up, it can be taken down easily. It's not as sturdy as their other suits, and fighting against them, it's quite easy. Now, it is cut and clear as to who has the advantage. It is the humans. However, Mr. Something will not admit that, and he is still ordering troops onto the battlefield. They will not be simply taken down easily. Mere mortals have nothing against them. And this is Midoriya and Mr. Something's fights. What it is coming down to. The two are battling and clashing against each other. And Midoriya, he actually does reveal his wings. As soon as he does manifest them, many people on the battlefield look into his direction and simply just stare at him. Midoriya unaware as to why. As soon as he begins to look around, looking down at his hands and seeing claws, before bringing his hands up to his head. He feels horns, and he does look at his back, one of his wings, or at least both of them. They have that demonic red tint to them. Along with that, they look more in form with an angel. However, they also do look a bit spikier and more bat-like, while retaining feathers. So, this is what he's become. Now, he just looks back up and is able to actually get impaled on Mr. Something's sword. And that does surprise him. However, he just looks up at Mr. Something, telling him that this isn't the end of the battle. And his guardian angel states that she actually does jump out of Midoriya for a second, lunging forward and trying to plunge her hand directly into his eyes to try and fight back. As soon as she does plunge her fingers into his eyes, she begins to quickly just pull down, being able to pull out some skin on his face. And he does actually somewhat go recoiling backwards, Midoriya grabbing the hilt of the sword and being able to straight up just pull it out of his body. However, he is still gravely injured. The wound is bleeding profusely, and Mr. Something is currently on his way back. He's regenerating fast, and informing Midoriya that he will not get away. This battle has already been lost. Now, this is where Mr. Something is actually kicked out of the way. And you do have somebody who saved him, who saved Midoriya. As he does actually look up to see one of these suits, one of the metallic ones. As the faceplate opens and Ochako states that he has to simply stay on his feet. What the hell are you doing here? Well, from what I know, this is a war, and people are dying. I may not have much information, but I know that you're one of the good guys, and I might be able to convince people. Convince? That's not how this works. You're gonna try and tell me how war works whenever you're bleeding from your stomach. What are you gonna do, scold them? Just tell me where they are. Oh, your buddies. Look for the pile of corpses. Thanks a lot. Besides, I did just save your life. Yeah, but how many have you taken? Ochako not even saying anything. Trying to take flight once again. She's letting the guidance system do most of the work. And she does try and fly in and talk to Mina. Mina doesn't even really pay attention, still trying to battle against the Doomslayer. Along with Tokoyami trying to battle against the Ghost Rider. Now, as soon as Ochako does make her presence known and she is in one of these suits, Mina does actually look somewhat disgusted, telling her that she has given up on everything, and for what? Humanity? And trying to berate and belittle her. However, that is the Doomslayer's chance, as he is able to throw his arm outwards, directly grab onto the back of Mina's wings, and tear them out. As soon as he does, he drops them to the ground, and Mina is screaming out in pain. Ochako trying to reason with the Doomslayer, as he puts her into a headlock, trying to say that she can change, and that she does not have to die. However, the Doomslayer just says, if she doesn't have to die, then his friends wouldn't have had to die, before swiftly just pulling off her head and killing her. Now, with that being said, this is whenever we will cut back over to Midoriya, or the Punisher. After pulling the sword out of his chest and trying to at least get back onto his feet, Mr. Something smashed into him, and threw him onto the ground, trying to throw punches directly at him, into his face over and over and over again, telling Midoriya that this feels awfully familiar. Throwing back his hand and just punching away at Midoriya. Midoriya bringing his arms up to block, Mr. Something just punching away at them, and informing him that this is where it all ends. Once again, the same position, the same place. On Earth, in this predicament. Hell will win. Now, as Mr. Something does say that, Midoriya simply just begins to think. His guardian angel is informing him that they need to merge, they need to bond, they need to simply just do it. If they are able to, then they will both stay alive. And Midoriya will have access to true power. Now, Midoriya keeps telling her no, as he just keeps getting hit over and over and over again. And she doesn't listen to Midoriya, simply just informing him that she is sorry, and that Midoriya will be somewhat like a god for one small second. Use that time to take him down. Now, as soon as she does this, she merges with Midoriya. His body already began to show off more and more demonic powers. And Midoriya, he just became an angel at the same time. He reached a high point, the abomination turning into a Nephilim. And as soon as Mr. Something did cock back his arm and throw it outwards towards Midoriya, Midoriya was able to grab onto his fist, and actually begin to bend it downwards, before just throwing out his head and smashing it directly into Mr. Something's, being able to turn the tides, throwing Mr. Something to the ground as he immediately just jabbed his hand down onto one of his wings, and simply just snapped it in half. Mr. Something letting out screams of pain, which coat the battlefields, many people being drawn to them. As Tokuyami, he goes flying in that direction, abandoning his fight and leaving Darkshadow's to deal with the Ghost Rider. As soon as that does happen, Tokuyami tries to tackle Deku. As soon as that does happen, Midoriya simply just throws out his arm and backhands him. However, he threw it out with his fingers, and the tips of his fingers sharpened. As soon as he threw it out, he was able to slice off Tokuyami's head, before being able to simply just take the soul straight out, and munching down on it. Midoriya then turning back to Mr. Something as he acted to just throw his hand directly outwards, smashing him across the face this time, and proceeding to hit him over and over and over again, until eventually Mr. Something can't even really see anything, or move, and Midoriya began to just rip him apart, piece by piece. Now, this is whenever eventually the battle does reach a climax. Mr. Something can't move, and the enemy forces, they're not really getting any word. They're not being told to advance, they're not being told anything. Mr. Something was in charge, and so were Mina and Todoroki, but they are all dead. And they're waiting for what Midoriya will do. Midoriya just looking down at Mr. Something, before just jamming his hand directly into his body, and telling him that this is for, as he says his angel's name, ripping out a fallen angel's soul, as the body begins to crumble. And Midoriya, he eats it, eating more divine power, as he then begins leading the charge to take on the rest of the demons. And they all follow. Every human, they commence their battle. Going in, they are fighting for their planet now. And the demons, they are on the run. And eventually, after a 6-month period, all of the demons, or at least most of them, they have all been run off of the earth. The Nephilim, he is born, and he is feared. A Nephilim has free will. They don't respond to anyone. The power that they own is unrivaled. Even the devil himself is said to fear one of these creatures. Now, along with that, you do have today Midoriya. He is still trying to get accustomed to the power. It isn't something you simply just grow accustomed to in one night, let alone a couple months. He himself is now a new and entirely different entity. And he was actually able to somewhat show off these powers. Not only being able to heal the sick, but also being able to heal Mei Hatsume. As soon as he did, she was able to actually take off this suit and actually feel free for the first time in a long time. He was able to mend their relationship, put it back together, and spend more time with her, as you do have today. They have been marching demons of all sorts and all kinds directly back into hell, and somewhat being able to rebuild. The devil himself, well, he is on the run, and most of the forces have been ordered to stand down. The devil will not go up against a foe that is able to kill a fallen. The fallen are harder to kill, and he's simply just being what he can do. He is going to abandon the world and move on to the next. Try again. He has failed. However, he will fix his mistake. He might need a champion for that world, and he will find one. Along with that, today, Midoriya, he has been talking with Mei, and they've finally figured out how to at least close the portal. Sadly, however, it involves going in and closing it from the inside. Midoriya himself, he wanted to go. However, many other people, they themselves all volunteered. If it's going to be a suicide mission, well, not a lot of them have much left to lose anymore. In fact, some of them all lost it years ago. And the people who are being sent are the only ones that they know will be able to accomplish the job. You have the Doomslayer and the Ghost Rider. Now, whenever they were sent off, they did actually do one thing. They showed their true faces and surprised everybody. The Doomslayer, the same age as Midoriya, the same birthday, the same face, and there being one key difference. More scars and a beard. While the Ghost Rider, he had long hair, and at least did show some kind of ideas as to what his real life was like. Simply just seeing that his life was not good, and that he is still trying to get himself back on his feet. That he used to be a very bad man, and that he was trained differently. He was taught. After time, Mephisto, as he said, he simply gave him unrivaled power, and he enjoyed it. He loved it. He abused it. And eventually, his world was gone. He let it give in to sin. Meanwhile, the Doomslayer goes on simply just stating that he is unable to find his home. All he has known for the last years of his life is nothing but war. And that he simply just needs to find his next battle. Once he finds it, he will hope for either one thing: a glorious victory or an honorable death. If he is able to find either, then he will find peace. Now, after they walked into hell, with a smile on their faces, they closed the portal, and they were gone in an instant. No one was really too sure what to say. Now, along with that, you do have more angels. They began to try and help the humans rebuild. and they did at least have somewhat of an idea of what to do. They were going to simply take away everyone's memories of the apocalypse and give the souls of the dead back to humanity. However, there was one problem. It would also mean that Midoriya himself would be taken away. He is no longer human. And he cannot stay with humanity. Especially after his apparent transformation. Midoriya would either need to go with them or be killed. However, he was given an alternate choice. Once he was presented. Now, Midoriya was told that he can simply just give up the power, and it can be used to help try and mend the earth. And Midoriya, he did actually somewhat like that idea, along with asking if his guardian angel can be brought back. To which, he didn't really get a response from that. It is a nice idea. However, her very essence itself cannot be brought back. It can be reborn, but not brought back. And Midoriya was perfectly fine with that. If she can at least somewhat remember who she was, that would be nice. Now, with that being said, as for Midoriya and May, they got their relationship back on track, rebuilding humanity and trying to at least instill peace and rule again was hard. However, under the banner of the Punisher, they were able to instill it. And the world began to go back to normal. Eventually, over time, some people began to start forgetting. However, those who fought more and more demons did at least retain some memories. And this is roughly about, let's say, a year or at least 3 later. Izuku Midoriya, he is cutting logs in a forest. And the grass is green and the sky is blue. And nature seems to have healed. As Midoriya is chopping the logs, he is just waiting until he hears that from inside, May simply just states that dinner is ready. And Midoriya does actually walk in and sit down. As he does sit down, May at least is tinkering with a new project. On her hand is somewhat of a, well, Mark 50 prototype. You just simply watching as it does cover her arm whenever she presses a button on her wrist and press that same button again. And this actually does surprise Midoriya. What is that? Oh, it's nanotech. You like it? Kind of. It's pretty interesting. Well, still. I want to say that I'm finally in the lead. Didn't I help you build those? Hey, it's not a contest. Really, because you sort of made it out to seem like one, May. Well, anyways. Do you know where she is? What? No, I don't think I've seen her. Now, that is when Midoriya begins to walk throughout the house. And eventually you do see his daughter. His 2-year-old daughter. She is running around and actually trying to mess around with one of Midoriya's old firearms. Luckily, Midoriya keeps those unloaded. Guns are not toys. At least, depending on who you are. Anyways, that's a joke. Now, with that being said, Midoriya does actually take the gun from her and instruct her that she needs to be at least safer. And that if she is going to swing this around, that she needs to be very careful. As he does actually just pick her up, and they walk over to the table. As soon as he does sit her down, they all do begin to eat. Midoriya asks if they're still working on getting the internet back up. Yeah, it was somewhat difficult, but after the agents traveled the US, they were at least able to find the servers and begin to at least jumpstart them. Wait, so you're saying that we can use phones again? Yeah, but it's still sort of limited. In fact, that's the problem. So far, we only have some forms of communication. And a lot of people, well, in the cities, they find it to be a bit too cramped. Some of them have actually forgotten what happened years ago. That's sort of surprising, actually. Yeah, that's just it, though. Do you think eventually we'll forget? I'm not too sure. I mean, if we do, we'll at least have each other, right? Yeah, it's at least somewhat comforting. But even then, I'm still worried about it. Well, May, if you're worried about it, you could always try doing something. And what would that be? Midoriya sliding over a notebook, telling her that she could just write it down. History is not meant to be forgotten. It is meant to be remembered and learned by. Her somewhat just laughing at him, and saying that he's at least got 1 point there. Now, May begins to document the events that have all happened, as to make sure that even if humans forget, it is written down and it is known that in the last 10 years there has been a war, and this war wasn't just about humans themselves. Why suddenly, somewhere around, well, what is it exactly? Around over 70% of the population suddenly just disappeared one day. Some people are still trying to figure that out, getting the answer that it was about the war. Now, with that being said, for those of you curious as to what is going on with Eri around this time, let's see. Midoriya is around the age of 23 right now. Subtracts 8 years old, or no, let's see, 7, you get 16. Eri, she was one of the few survivors that were able to escape. She herself wanted to fight. However, it was always seen and looked at as dangerous. Whenever humanity rebuilt, she was able to eventually find her mother, and so began to live a normal life. Her quirk was still dangerous, but it is known that there is different dangers out there. So her quirk, it was just seen as somewhat normal now. And since she does have better control over it nowadays, her mother basically forgot about what happened with her father. Now, with that being said, you also do have Bakugo and Ochako. They already did have somewhat of a connection going on between them. And since he basically did look after her for a long time while she was comatose, and she basically proved that she was able to be good and help out during the war by saving Midoriya's life, the two eventually began to talk more. Midoriya, or not Midoriya, Bakugo filling her in on what happened. And she was actually somewhat surprised. And they mourned Class 1A's death together. Bakugo is finally able to at least begin to get over his past. And then there is Todoroki and Momo. Now that Mr. Something is dead, Momo doesn't have to worry about people thinking that she is against everyone. The war is over and she proved herself. And she actually did somewhat not feel solace in that. And Todoroki was able to help her with that. Getting over a war is not easy. However, it's finding comfort in people around you. Even during your darkest times, there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. That tunnel can be a mile long, and you will still see it. It can be 15 miles long, and you can still see it. That tunnel can be 100 million miles long. And as long as you keep moving forwards, keep taking a step, you get closer and closer. As in, it isn't always there, you can't always see it. But as long as you know that it will be there, you know that the sun will rise, the sun will shine, that the days will get better. They will be worse. They can beat you down, destroy you, and try and break you. But you just have to get back up and keep moving. That is what she has learned from everything. Now, with that being said, I do believe that this is the end of the what if.